I don't know. Okay.
I'm here.
Alrighty.
This
Go
is
ahead.
just a test of faith. All right, let me hurry up and tell this story
Story.
while you cool down. Can you hear me okay?
Say again.
Can you hear me okay?
Clearly. I can hear you clearly.
You know, there's a reason for every test, and that was probably to let me just kind of get myself together. Okay, now that I'm together, I probably need a glass of wine behind that, but
Yeah, we both said
I needed that moment of levity because I could feel myself going left. And so
Oh,
God
okay.
said, let me just take her off the screen for a minute while she gets
Ooh,
herself together.
I'm
And
gonna
now
need me some wine
Carla can
myself.
fan. So anyway, thank you for continuing to work at this, even if it's me and you. Maybe I just, as you as a nurse, Carla, maybe you're the one who's sent to help me through this after 50 years.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
back to
50
the
years.
story.
Okay.
I have to decide how much of this I'm going to tell. I think I'll tell a little bit, and then if you want to ask me some questions, you can.
Okay.
In 1973, I was having what I thought was a normal pregnancy, and I started to bleed early, very early in the pregnancy. So I was put to bed for the remainder of the pregnancy, which was just one of the worst things they could tell me because I had a 2-year-old son and a non-supportive husband. And I did not know what I was going to do. So I called my mother. I was living in Chicago at the time. I called my mother, and she could not come because my grandmother was ill. And
Wow.
she sent my dad, who I had no relationship with. And my dad was the kind of man, he was gone a good part of my life. He didn't come home until I was 10, which is a whole nother story. It's
Right,
not
right.
traumatic, but interesting.
Yeah.
I won't delve into that. But she said, well, your dad will come. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is he going to do? I mean, he was just not that kind of dad. And I had to cook and take care of a 2-year-old and, just try to keep myself healthy. I was not feeling very well. Long story short, in my 5th month, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning with not horrible pain, but just this steady pain. It was very regular. First, it was every like 6 or 7 minutes. Then it was every 5 minutes.
Right.
Then it was and I'm thinking, oh my God, I know what this is.
Wow.
I'm in
Right.
labor at 5 months.
Right.
And I was just terrified. And I probably waited too long. But in this story I wrote, and I won't tell all of that part. I mean, we had this horrific ride from our home to the hospital. And the baby came when I was in the car. I was sitting in the middle. It was back in the days where you didn't have two separate seats, two separate like jump seats. All 3 people could sit in front.
Yeah. Back in those are good seats. You can hold a whole other people in that
It's
car.
5 people. You could put 5 in the back and 3 in the 4 in the front if you had to. And it was in the dead of winter in Chicago, Illinois. So it was probably 10 degrees.
Right.
And I'm holding my 2-year-old next to me when I feel my baby coming.
Mm.
And I was just, I don't think that I've been that afraid in my life, not in my whole life. So when I got to the hospital, she was there. And this was a time, 1973 was for Black people, was still a rough time. Not in my whole life. It was still a rough time.
Today is
And
still a rough time. Go ahead.
well, it was very rough then. And I lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly white.
Wow.
And they were just very callous in how they handled things. So basically, I was thrown on the gurney, this tiny little thing was alive, and somebody said to me, your baby won't live through the night. Just like that.
Wow.
Just like that. And so there I was, actually by myself through the night, just waiting, and the next day she was still here.
Wow.
So I was sent home. Of course, I couldn't bring her home, but I was sent home. And they basically told me, well, don't get your hopes up because she's not going to live. I felt no compassion whatsoever. She lived that day, the next day, another week, a second week. They told me she would not ever open her eyes, and she did.
Mm.
They said she'll never breathe on her own. She's too little. She did. She had all 10 toes, and she was the only one of my children who had hair.
Wow.
But my son was born bald. My third daughter was born with very, very little hair. And I was just fascinated with this beautiful little being who was so whole, but so sick because she was not truly fully developed. And so when 2 weeks passed, the doctor called and said, has anybody called you from the hospital? I said, no. And he said, well, your baby won't live through the weekend. This was a Friday. And I spent that weekend, the worst weekend probably in my life, or close to it. And so every March 28th, all these years later, that feeling comes up. It's automatic. I'm sure you felt it. Was it this morning, Carla?
Yeah.
When you were thinking about your dad?
Yeah.
It just rises up like steam from the ground. And you just relive that. And all this time I have. But I keep, I have made sure my children knew that they had this beautiful little sister. She was beautiful. But because she left, I believe in my heart of hearts that she went up there and negotiated with God and said, listen, I came too early and I couldn't stay. Let me send another angel. And God was listening. He did. And anybody on this call who knows my baby, Jennifer, knows she is just the most special little angel ever, sent by her sister. So I wish I could just talk about it and not cry, but I can't.
It's okay to cry.
I just can't, because it's still a hole. As beautiful as Jennifer is, it's still a hole. So that's the short story.
Let me say, and I know we've had a couple conversations about this. I am sorry that happened to you.
Me too.
I am sorry that you had to walk that journey alone. And my heart hurts that you had no one to hold your hand, no one to acknowledge your pain. No one to comfort you. I am sorry, Miss Pauline.
I know. But let me tell you this. I was living in a very interesting place at the time.
Mm-hmm.
My husband at that time was a very corporate guy who was one of those Negroes who was breaking their way into the white world. Sometimes that's not always a good thing. Back then, people thought it was, but sometimes it's not always a good thing. And we lived in an all-white community. We had a few little chocolate drops here and there, but in this community where I live, we were positioned so that we couldn't overthrow the community and overthrow the government. So they put one over here and one over, this is the truth, one over here, one over there. We would meet up on Saturdays at the grocery store so we could see each other. And so I had a few friends, a few.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one friend who came. Now, one of my friends who happened to be a Caucasian woman who I loved dearly then, and she's no longer with me, but she was a true friend. And she was the one who would take me to see my baby every other day until she died. And she really held me up as best she could. But at that time, I was mad at the world. I was mad at God. And I had one of my Black friends who came to the house. I mean, she meant well. And maybe you can help us talk through this, Carla. People mean well, but they don't say the right things. Sometimes
No.
you just don't want to be bothered.
Right.
And at that time, I just wanted to dig a hole, crawl in it, and not come out.
Right.
But she came and for all the ministerial staff, I see one on the call. She came with her preacher. He wasn't my preacher. I didn't have a church home like I would have here,
No.
or in a closer community of Black people. But she came with her minister, and all I could hear him say was blah 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 blah. I just wanted him to get out of my house. There was nothing at that moment he could say to me that could make me feel better. Nothing. And I just patiently waited until he was done and showed them out of my house. I don't think I was ugly, but I don't think I said anything. I just wanted them to go. So even though people mean well, they mean well. Sometimes I guess it's between you and God, but at the time I was mad at God.
Amen.
I thought, how could, this is a God that I believed in, that I prayed to, and he took this precious thing away from me. So I was just really angry with everybody and could hardly function. And it took another year. It took until Jennifer came. And when she came, she was the light that just took away all the darkness. But I went a whole year. I got pregnant again too soon. I didn't want anybody to know. I assumed that I would go through the same thing I went through that time. So it was like I was traumatized once, and then I was scared to death for the next 9 months of being pregnant. So it was an experience that, I don't know, I was going to say it changed me.
Did it?
I'm thinking. I guess, and I don't know. I have to think about that. It injured me. I do know that. I don't know if it changed me. I don't know how. I'm not sure how. Because, as I told you, this is not something I talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it takes me to this drowning place that I generally don't want to go. So.
Go ahead. We're
I
talking.
think that the healing, The healing place, and a little child will lead you. I was led by this new baby because she was so, Michael was just the most adorable, sweet, quiet. He was the perfect child. She came with so much adventure. She still is. She had so much strength. And so the strength, I think I got back from her because I had to keep up with her all the time.
All the time,
And
right?
I still do. I still do. So it took me a long time. I had to then engulf myself in them, in the two of them together. And that was a joy. But it took a minute to get to that.
Let me say this. I'm gonna say two things. First, I just want to recap for the people that just came on. We're talking about trauma, lived trauma, having to confront our pain, releasing our pain, and moving forward. We're talking about wounded women that are walking around with their bottled up pain. Miss Pauline Mansfield is sharing her trauma, the experience of loss. And I want to ask you this, Miss Pauline, what would have made it better? I know you talked about your friend bringing the minister to the house. You didn't say exactly what she said, but you talked about the words. What would have made it better?
I was in so much pain at that moment, Carla. I didn't hear the words. I had no idea what the words were. I have not a clue. I couldn't dig them up even if I wanted to because my ears were closed. I wasn't listening. I was just in too much pain to listen. I'm
And
going to tell you.
go ahead.
Well, I, I don't know if you remember the part in the story where it was probably 20 years later. And I was doing an event for the hospital that I was working for. I think it was a heart walk. And I had never talked about this. Didn't really want to talk about it. It was it's like somebody, like you have a scar and somebody wants to take the scab off. No, no, no. Don't pull that off. That's going to hurt. Don't pull it
Mm-hmm.
off. So I just let the scab stay there. I just let the scab be my protection. But 20 years later, it might have been longer than that. I was doing an event for the hospital, coordinating it. And we were down at the stadium, or I think at the baseball field here in Atlanta. And I was just walking around to some of the booths to see what other people were doing. They had vendors and that kind of thing. And I walked up to this booth and it was covered in all these angels. There were angels everywhere. Crocheted angels, paper angels, glass angels, just angels. So I walked up to the person at the table and I said, well, what is this organization? And I've forgotten the name of it, but it had the word angel in it. And it was an agency that helped women who were going through trauma, the same kind of trauma that I had gone through, women who had lost babies. When she told me, I broke down. I mean, all the way down. I mean, I started to sob uncontrollably. And they were like angels themselves. They had the right people doing this. Somebody ran and grabbed a chair, sat me down. They embraced me. It was like 2 or 3 or 4 people because I'm sure they thought I might have a heart attack or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't say anything. They just comforted me. And then finally, the woman said, tell me your story.
Mm.
That was the first time I'd ever told it. I mean, people knew, family knew, but that was the first time I'd ever told it. And they didn't do a whole lot of talking. Sometimes you don't need a whole lot of talking. Sometimes you just need comfort.
So I have to listen.
They listened, and they comforted me. And then finally, there wasn't a lot of conversation. She let me get this off my chest that I've been hauling around for 22 years or however long it was. And she said, "Would you like to put your baby's name on the board?" And I said, "Yes, I would." So I wrote her name, and then she gave me an angel,
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful crocheted angel that sits right beside my bed to this day.
Mm.
So whoever that stranger was, up until that moment, probably helped me more than anybody because she allowed me to get it out with no pressure. She just asked one question, she just said one thing: tell me the story. If you feel like it, tell me your story. That was that was what I needed at the time. And that helped me a lot because I was able to carefully take that scab off, put the scab aside, and then, you know, find joy in her. And then it was probably another 10 years before I actually wrote the story. And then I wrote the story and put it away. It's just so uh, it's different for everybody. Some, uh, you know, people respond to different things. And if God is really good, he'll send you the right one. You don't always know who it is.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not in someone close, it's in a stranger.
Yes.
So I guess you have to be open to it. But it's not like I was looking for that that day over there at the Atlanta Stadium. I was not looking for that. It could have ruined my whole day. It didn't. I mean, it took me a minute to get it together, um, and go back to the business of the day. But I'll never forget that woman or the rest of those people. And I still have that angel to this day. So I know that um, my baby, I'd like to think that she's an angel up there, one of the best ones, along with my mother and some of our other ancestors, your dad. Um, but it's still hard to talk about.
Yeah. It is not, and that's obvious that it's still hard for you. It's still very painful, and I'm not sure if you mind me going to a certain place because as a nurse, as a labor and delivery nurse, I've encountered this. This not my. There are some people who like working with um, in fetal demise patients, babies that die, and that's not one of my forte. But one of the things you said several things in your story, and then and as we're having an intergenerational conversation, and we're talking to other women that are in pain and that's probably not as far along as you are on your journey. I know from your story, you talked about not having the support. You were already in a difficult situation where you were with your ex, with your children's for dad. So
Yes,
that right there added more fuel or added pain to the pile of pain that you already had. And then the doctor was so callous
he was
in
totally
what he
callous.
said.
He was
And then
totally callous. I can't remember anybody at that hospital who treated me like a human being. Not one. Not one. It was like I was a non-entity, just something on a checklist. I never had one person to come in and comfort me in the middle of the night. Not one. Not one. I just laid there
wow.
by myself.
Mm.
Um, it was just a horrible experience. It was
So
a horrible.
So we're dealing with pain, we're dealing with anger, we're dealing with neglect, rejection.
Lack of community. If I had been home in my hometown with my mother and my aunts and my cousins, I probably would not have gone through such horror. But I didn't have that community to hold me up. I had some isolated, more like acquaintances,
Right.
and I had that one friend who she did everything she possibly could to make sure I saw my baby, to try to be there for me. But I needed the village, and I didn't
Right.
have the village. I didn't have the village. Um, so, and because my dad had just left. You remember I said my dad had come to help me.
Right. You and your mama said your dad. Mhm.
Right. And he was just really kind of he was a good man, but he was just kind of helpless in those kinds of he didn't know what to do. I mean, he tried. He did. He cooked. He would take my son out for walks. He tried. And he was
You
he
did
was
the
a very
best that you
quiet.
could. Yeah.
He did the best he could do. He was not a talking man, but he
Mhm.
knew I was needing something. And I was confined to bed. I wasn't supposed to come down the stairs, and my house had stairs. But once a week, because he came a month or two before this happened, he would let me come down. He would help me downstairs, sit me in a chair, and he would try to talk, but he was not a talker. So
Right.
he was working really hard. He didn't, we didn't have that kind of relationship. He would try to tell a story of some kind, but he wasn't used to doing that because he was not a talker.
Mhm.
But eventually, I think he stayed maybe a couple of months. And after that 2 months, he had to go. I don't know if he had to go back to work. I don't remember, but he had to go. And I remember we were never really very close. But when he left, and shortly after he left, Erica died.
Wow.
And he felt guilty. He felt if I had been there, maybe she wouldn't have died.
Right.
And just like we are, he was a writer. So he wrote, he could do better writing it down on paper than he could
And then he said it
talking.
to yeah.
Right. So he wrote this long letter apologizing for not being there. It's like, I know if I had stayed, you wouldn't have had this loss. Well, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. I don't know if he ever got over that, but he went back to his non-talking self until he
Mhm.
left here. Um, but people did try, Carl. And I don't know if it was that I was not open to it. Um, Maybe it would have. It took time. It just took time before I could just deal with it on any level. Just time. And having another child, which brought just total wholeness to my life, with the two of them. But that took a while to get back on that horse.
Mm. I'm sure it did.
It
I'm
did.
sure it did.
It did. I was stumbling through, just stumbling, trying to. It was almost like I had to relearn how to be a mother.
Really?
Yeah. Because while I was going through it, I still had my son. But it's like I forgot what to do. I was so deep. I was in such a deep state of depression. I could hardly move.
Mm.
And I felt really bad that I was like that because, he needed his mama. So I had to just crawl back, scraping my way back. And, going through all the fear of being pregnant again, that was not in the plan. That was not in the plan. I was terrified. Oh God, oh God, oh God. But because they were such loving siblings, they still are to this day. I mean, when they see each other, it's like lights come on. They just love each other so much. And seeing all that love, because when I brought her home from the hospital, it was like, I think that was the happiest day in my son's life. He was still a little baby. He was 3.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we set him in a little chair and let him hold her. Oh my gosh. Just seeing that light was just extraordinary.
Yes.
Just that light. And so they have been my light, the two of
Yes.
them, for 50 years, 50 plus.
Yes. Telling it again.
Yes,
Telling it.
they have been my light. And so they helped me too, a lot, because they were just so wonderful, the two of them. So then we became the trio, and the trio just made life work 1 year at a time after that. So um, what would I advise to people who are going through this? I don't know, Carla. You know, I had so many strikes against me at that time. And it's like any other painful situation. The more things you have hitting on you, the more painful it is. And I had a lot hitting on me at the time.
Yes. Yes.
Too much. It was too much. If the situation had been different, if I had had a loving husband, uh, somebody who cared and who was there for me, that would have probably made all the difference in the world. But I didn't have that. I didn't have that. I was in my unfamiliar. I lived in a place that I felt was like the Stepford wives.
Mm.
You know, people just walked around like a little machine. It was not my world. It was not my world. I didn't want to be in that world. I didn't choose it. So all those things were against me. All those things were against me. So
Because you were dealing with a lot. You were dealing with the pain, the anger, the grief, the lack of community, the depression.
yeah,
And it's really something else because a lot of women today are going through the same thing.
right.
They expect us to be mothers, um, caregivers, and we don't have all the resources and tools. And I
Correct.
think for me, one of the biggest things I got from that is um, being validated by your significant other, being validated by the hospital, the healthcare setting, being validated by life itself, and even not having that community, which community is so important to us.
That's true.
Not having that community. And
That's
and
true.
that's one of the things that we have to do and I think that's why we're having these intergenerational conversations so we can teach the younger women how important it is to have a community.
Right.
And then teach them how to build that community. You hear people talk about, I don't mess with women, I don't talk to them, they this, they that, but to me, the sisters in my corner has really been the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And, I can just even from people being on this live here, I can tell you who prayed for me, who encouraged me, who pushed me, who had set high expectations. So I'm so glad that you was able, no matter what we went through, to get this live going and to get it started and to push it through. I am so glad that you were able to get on here and share your story. Because
Me
there's
too.
power in stories. And someone talked about how descriptive you are. And in telling your story, she said it reminded her of California Cooper. I'm not sure if you're familiar with California Cooper. I love her stories. I'm gonna have to
Uh,
I'm gonna turn you on to California
yeah,
Cooper.
please.
I loved her stories. Um, do we have any questions from our audience? Anybody want to ask anything? Miss Pauline, you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, there's one thing I want to add. There was one thing that I was dealing with, and it was the guilt of some things I did wrong. Just that trip to the hospital when I was sitting in the front seat, I thought if I had been in the back seat laying down, you think back on these things And then I also was holding her. I had her head in my hand. And I had on pants. I mean, it was just 1,000 things. I look back, if only, if only, if only, if only I hadn't done this, if only I hadn't done that. You know, did I create some damage that could have been fixed if she hadn't been born right there in the car? You know that kind of thing. Um,
Guilt.
all of the guilt,
Yeah, guilt.
guilt, guilt. So it was piled on like manure, one thing on top of the other.
Yes, I definitely feel that because hindsight is something you played over and over in your
Yes,
mind. Well, what if I had
right,
done this? What if I had maybe I didn't tell my doctors? Maybe I should have called them
right,
earlier to let them
right,
know what was going on. All of these what ifs.
right.
Um, Terry said she said it's so amazing how mothers can shift to what's important in spite of our pain. No matter what's going on in your world as a mother, your world is your children. This is
Yeah,
part of your nature as a nurturer. You want to do best for your kids, no matter how much pain you are. And as you were talking, I identified with when you said that you had to no matter how if you were depressed, no matter what you were doing, that you had to learn to be a mom again.
I did.
And I think a lot of women can identify with that because from my stories, I remember at one point it was what they had. I think they had tea and they had bread and cheese for because I was in so much pain and like you, I was pregnant and I was going through all of that stuff and I was like, at least I'm gonna feed them. I couldn't do much else. I did the best I could with what I could, with what I had at that point. So yeah, as mothers, we're expected to do so much. And when we
Yeah,
don't have a community, I'm coming back to community again. When we don't have a community, it makes it so much difficult.
it does. It really does. It was the loneliest time of my life, I think. And those who know me well, there are a few people on here that know me. You know, I went through a terrible divorce. I never even felt I was dealing with anger and fear and some other things, but I didn't feel the kind of loneliness and depression that I felt like I did with the loss. I mean, you're talking about carrying this person around inside you all this time. You know that my body was the house. Was the house,
Miss Pauline,
and
you want to add anything? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay, that's all right. I'm carrying this human around inside, and then it's gone. It's gone. Something that you would look forward to. And the other thing is, I wanted a girl. I wanted somebody's hair I could braid, somebody who could. So I wanted somebody I could do the girl things with. It's different. It's just different for those who have girls, they know. So I was really looking forward to it so much, to having this little girl. And I knew that my son needed another sibling because he was such a mama's baby.
Mm-hmm.
He needed, and then it was no longer here. And so I just thought I missed my chance. I'll never have another girl. I just thought that I can't have it. That was my one chance. Like they didn't make girls after she came. Um, but it all worked itself out. He needed.
Mm-hmm. It all worked out in the end.
In many ways, yes. In many
What,
ways.
did it change your perspective about life and your perception of life and how you treat others? Because you worked in several hospital settings. Did it change how you saw your community?
Well, I knew I didn't want to be in that community. So I wanted to get out of I wanted to get out of that community as fast as I could get out. So it was a goal of mine to leave Chicago. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny how physical things also make a difference. Chicago, no offense to any Chicagoans, because Chicagoans are very loyal to Chicago. They love Chicago. But I found Chicago cold in not only weather. We had two seasons, frigid winter and over hot summer. That's it. There was no spring and fall. As soon as the kids went back to school, you pull out the coats, the hats, the gloves, the boots, all of that. And it was such a cold city to me. And so I just didn't, I no longer wanted to be there. I needed to get out of that city as quick as I could get out. And shortly after Jennifer was born, we came back to Atlanta, and I felt when I got here, oh my God, I felt like I died and gone to heaven.
The
I mean, I
hospitality.
was back. And that too, Carla, was so healing for me to get back to my people. I sang all the way from Chicago. I had two babies in the car and a car full of cereal all over the place. And I sang all the way from Chicago here because I was now home.
Amen.
And this is not my home. I'm from Maryland.
Yeah, I
But
know.
Atlanta, I knew that I had come home.
Amen.
And so the community was there. Just everything I needed was right here. And it's just been here ever since. So that was Atlanta was a gift for me. And the people in it. I love this city.
Yeah. And they love you too. They
I'm
love
not
you
going
too.
to, I'm not going nowhere. I mean, this is more home than home. Um, I just love everything about this town, even with all of our problems here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. It has been a wonderful growing experience here for my children. They have loved every second that they have been here. Everything about this experience was a beautiful one. So we came back at the right time. At the right time. And, it served as a cocoon for me and cushioned me through every other difficult thing I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I had to go through what I went through afterwards in Chicago, oh my gosh. But the one thing I knew, I was never one who was fatalistic. Never wanted to jump off a bridge, never wanted to put a gun to my head. I wanted to be here. I just wanted to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be sad. I didn't want to be in this dark place, so, I had to find a way out.
I admire your tenacity and their resilience. Being able to bounce back. And when I look at you now, nobody can tell what your journey's been like, the things that you've been, the rivers, there's so many rivers to cross, the many
That's right.
rivers you've crossed.
That's true.
No
And
one
I'm
can
happy for
tell.
my resilience. I mean, that was built in. That comes from my people. I come from strong people, and I'm happy that I have been, and I'm happy for the people that God has put in my circle to bring me so much joy here.
Mhm.
And I finally made up with God. It took a minute. It took a
It's
minute.
okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to say how you feel. I mean, look, Lord, I was really angry. I understand what
Yeah,
you were doing. That was painful.
I was very angry, but you know what? I appreciate and thank God for just waiting. Just waiting, because I went on several paths. I was agnostic for a while. I thought about switching to Islam for a minute. Um, he was patient. He was very patient, and so I'm grateful for that. And thank you, Carla, for I'm just really grateful to I don't know if Terry's gone, but I saw Terry on here. I'm
Yeah,
just
she's still
grateful.
on here. She's still on here.
I'm really grateful to Terry for, she is Terry Williams is glue. She knows how to glue folks
Oh,
together. And she doesn't even know what powerful glue she is. So Terry Williams, if you're out there, girl, I love you and I thank you. You've been one of the best gifts God ever sent. And so she has helped me to see how good God is.
Yes, Taylor Queen.
She's one of the praying sisters. I'm grateful for all these praying sisters, who just keep reminding me, he's all right. He's all right.
Yeah, Terry's prayed for a whole lot. She's prayed for me. We prayed. I mean, we prayed all over the place. Okay, Terry, I need you to pray, and she started praying, and
That's
I'm so
right.
grateful that she brought that.
She's a really and a loud praying sister. When she starts praying out loud, everybody needs to just kind of stand back and hold because the wind starts to blow. That's the kind of sisters I need around me. Those strong sisters, and I got them here. I got them.
And that's what we talk about. Community. It's so important to have that
Yes,
community.
yes,
Because
it
without
is
the
important.
community, we're nothing. Without community, we die. Without
Right.
community, we can't thrive, and it's definitely important. So tell us about some of the things that you're doing now, Taylor Queen.
Yeah.
I
This
love you,
this
but go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk about Ken
well,
and
this is
Dignity.
the most joyful time. All my motherhood. This time is mine.
Let's share one cup.
And I'm so glad that God has said, okay, Pauline, you can sit down. And what is it you love to do most? And he delivered it on a platter. I never expected to have these seasoned years writing every day. And I have found that first I thought, the joy in this is going to be writing my stories, just my stories. That's all I wanted to do. But then I discovered other people want to write their stories, and I've already been there. So I can drop the breadcrumbs along and show them how to do their stories. I can crawl in and become their voice and put their words on paper. That is something about that is just beyond joyful. There's not even a word I have for it. So I stumbled on, how you trip on these things. Somebody sent me a magazine. This is how the real journey began. Somebody sent me a magazine that their son had written an article in it. I don't think you know this, Carla. One of my college classmates said, oh, my son wrote this article in a magazine called Ken and Dignity. And I said, oh, great. Send us the link. He sent me the link. I love the story. I love the magazine. I thought, dang, this is a great magazine. And it's written by our people. And so I started reading the magazine online on a regular basis. And then one day I looked down at the bottom of the page and it said, do you have a story that you'd like to submit to our magazine? I went, yeah, I would, out loud to myself. That was the beginning of my journey to Ken and Dignity. Never in 100 years did I think that this magazine would accept my story. I didn't. I was shocked when I got the response. I was absolutely shocked. And one story led to another story, led to another story. But the beautiful thing now is that you write for Ken and Dignity. My friend Joanna writes for Ken and Dignity. My friend Patty writes for Ken and Dignity. It's just the best thing. It's like we have, it's like we have this secret little club of joy, the Joy Club. Yeah. There used to be a movie called The Joy Luck Club. We have the Joy Luck Club. I mean, it's just so giving, isn't it, Carla? It's so giving.
Because you never, I didn't think I love to read. I love reading. And I didn't believe that I can write for a magazine or write for anything. So just the dream of being a writer and then getting published, I'm like, ooh, what?
It's extraordinary. I still haven't gotten over it. But the fact that this editor of this magazine had so much confidence in me, and I know in you and the other people who have come on to write, I saw another opportunity just reading. I'm reading all the time, and something popped up on the internet, and it was called Story Terrace. And I thought, Story Terrace, I wonder what that is. I just kept reading it, Scan down to the bottom. Would you like to be a ghostwriter for our company? And I'm thinking, this is what I love to do. But you know what I did? I talked myself out of it initially. I thought, oh no, no. And I'm gonna tell you why I talked myself out of it. And this is for everybody in the audience. I thought, this is way, way above my pay grade. This is not for me. This I can just read about these people who do this because this is an international company. These people are all over the world. And I'm thinking, why would I even think I could do that? But just on a whim, I thought, shoot, I'm just going to just fill out the application, just like I was playing with God. Filled it out and forgot about it. But I didn't have to forget long because within 1 week, somebody had contacted me for an interview. I hadn't had an interview in 20 years, maybe more than that. And I'm just thinking, then I got scared. And I'm thinking, oh God, what did I do? And he was pushing me for this interview. And he said, well, we really want to talk to you. If you could just give us a few minutes to talk, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, had the interview. A week later, they offered me the job. That's the honest to God truth. And still, I was saying, Pauline, you're really out of your league. This was a really stupid thing you did. You're a retired girl. Just write for Kin and Dignity and be happy. But they pushed me. They were really pushing me. And I didn't know at the time how new Story Terrace was in the U.S.
Wow.
Story Terrace started in London. And they just recently, about the time I applied, had opened the North American office in Hollywood, California. North America, meaning Canada and everything, and then I was in it. But, and I have had to really write past my fear because I kept saying, Pauline, you don't have to do this. You really don't have to do this. But I love it. I love it. I love it. But I never want to get so comfortable in anything I do that I feel like I got this. I mean, I just keep pushing myself. I keep taking classes. I go to every training they have so I can learn to be better, do better. And then I can still enjoy what I do, but add excellence to it. So I'm at a point where there's no end to excellence. Excellence is not a destination. It's not a point we get to and say, oh, I've arrived at excellence. We will never get there. Excellence is with God. But I keep getting better and better and better. And I'm happy that I continue to do that. Will I apply somewhere else? No. This is it. This is it. No, this is it. So, life has been very full, complex, complicated, all of those things.
I see here, you've influenced so many besides myself. When they talked about you encouraging people, Renee Henry, encouraging people to write their stories.
Renee Henry, let me tell you the Renee Henry story. Renee and I worked together. Renee, I'm not going to say anything that's going to embarrass you. She and I worked together, and she was a tough little cookie. This is one strong woman. And talk about, this is one of the best mothers in the universe.
And grandmother.
And yes, she's a very willful person who has strong opinions about everything. But I learned somehow, I think she brought me in, I don't remember why. Maybe I had written a book. She brought me in something she had been keeping in a shoebox under the bed somewhere all these years. It was the funniest, most well-written thing. I said, girl, why haven't you written a book? And she said, well, I'm going to. I don't know how many more years it took her. But when she finally answered her call, that was one of the most enjoyable reads I have ever had. And so if anybody has not read Renee's first book, go back and read the first one first. She's also written the second one. J. Renee, she's on Amazon. Or are you?
Oh,
It's just the most wonderful read. And so God has planted all these wonderful writers all around me, and I get to share all of their gifts and, find things in them that I can put into my writing. It's just spectacular. And it's just been nice watching the Renees of the world give themselves credit for what the gift is they have. Sometimes people don't see their gifts.
mm-hmm.
Somebody else has to say, there it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
What have you been stumbling over every day? Didn't see it. And there are a lot of people.
You do a great job doing that. You do
Well,
an
let me
excellent
tell you,
job.
I don't do anything. I just say, well, this is what I see right here. What have you been looking at? It's there. It's there. It's not something that I put there. It's something that's already there. And I take great joy in seeing these people just bloom like flowers. It's just, it's incredible. It's just an incredible thing. And I think that is the joy of the village. And I'm telling you, our Black Sister Village is one of the most powerful villages that ever was created, ever. And we have to learn that we have to do things in unity. We have to lock hands, lock hearts. We might get our little sister-tudes on, but we have to know that we cannot do it without each other.
Yes, powerful. It's powerful. We need to do it. We can do it together. We can do so much more.
That's true.
As a group than we can as one
person. That's true. That's true. Unity is, and it's not a secret. We just have to do it. We have to lift each other up, hold each other's hands to get over every bump we have to get over. And, at the end, it's a beautiful thing. It is.
It definitely is. I got two more things, Miss Pauline. I know Renee shared her information on here about her website. And
Thank you, Renee.
It's www.lives, which is Z, not S, livesinopenbook.com. So LIFEZAN openbook.com. So that right there, that's Renee Henry. And that's her website where you can get her books.
And let me tell you, Renee's other gift is, I'm not picking on you, Renee, but sometimes she hides her stuff under the bushel. She is the most creative. I mean, she created her own branding. She has her bags and book symbols, and I see Renee doing that for other people as a business.
Come on, Renee.
I don't know why she's not doing it. So I'm putting it out there, Renee. I can see her now saying, "What is she talking about?"
That's
what I see. Because she sees things that we don't have. Each one of us has our own special gift. And I can take my gift and get a piece of Renee's gift and get a piece of Terry's gift and get a piece of your gift, Carla. And, we can turn this world upside down.
And it's time. It's time.
It is. And it's happening. It's happening. All we have to do is watch what's happening in television and film. It's happening because these women are stepping up and said, here we are. Nobody's going to stop us now.
Nope.
And so we need to get on the bus, take our little gifts in our baskets that we've been hiding, and go to work and get paid for it.
And that's a story for another day, because we can do so much. I think we have to change our perception where we have to work for others. Because as
Yeah,
I look at it now, I've slaved for 30 going on, I'm telling my age, for
correct.
almost 37 years as a nurse, working for
Yes,
different employers. And then you get up tomorrow and your job is gone. So
correct.
we have to use, it's time for us to work within our community, work outside as well, but do
Yes,
our own thing, make our own money, set our own hours, do the things
that's
that we
right.
want. But Miss Pauline, we could go on all day.
I know.
I want you to talk about, and you don't have to go into you don't have to go into the details, but I want you to talk about your birthday, this last birthday celebration. And the reason why I want you to talk about it well, I want you to talk about this because, people tend, when you get a certain age, you can't do anything. Life is done. It's over. But
Right.
what people have to understand, as long as you got life and strength in you, you still got dreams. Your dreams can be fulfilled. You can work on your dreams. So we need to stop limiting ourselves because of our age, because of where we live, because of our education. There's no barriers, no boundaries. We set our boundaries in our mind. So I want you to talk about the life that you did, the thriving stuff.
Well, first of all, I was married for 30 years, got a divorce, was broke, busted, disgusted, and down and out, and didn't know what in the world I was going to do after that. At that point, I was 50. And I'm thinking, oh my God, has life ended for me? My children were grown and gone, so they had their own lives. And my credit score at that time, this is where I was, this is how low I was 444. I'll never forget it because I played that number for the longest time, hoping that at least that would pay off. I mean, I did not have a bank account, I had to beg and cry to get somebody to open a bank account for me. I had nowhere to live, but a friend provided me a home until I could get back on my feet. I mean, I was at the bottom of the bottom. I was working poor. And I just thought, is this how life is going to end for me? I mean, is this where I'm going to be? Is this how I'm going to die? And then with the community, with the village, with people encouraging me, and interestingly enough, the encouragement actually began with a group of poets. And I started going to this poetry place, and it was so uplifting for me, listening to these gifted people. And I started writing poetry again because I love poetry. And every once in a while, they would nudge me to get up and speak, which I hated because I was so self-conscious and insecure because they were like, oh my God, they were like the most gifted people I'd ever seen. So that group encircled me. I had a whole new family of poets. From the poets, I went to Toastmasters, and I had a whole new family of speakers who operated a whole different level. I mean, these are people who wanted to get paid for public speaking. What?
Yeah.
And there were writers in that group. I'm just thinking, wow. And I've been a Toastmaster now for 15 years, still love it. So I had circle, 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 and all these circles started to interconnect. I had a big birthday. Okay, so that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. So this birthday, I thought the number was kind of high. As a matter of fact, I thought it was wrong. And I told my children, I said, I don't want no balloons hanging outside my house. I don't want no number on a cake. I don't want no big announcement. Just forget this birthday. I'm just going to do what I want to. And a friend of mine, a poet, Bonnie Harvey, said to me, well, Miss P, you don't have to celebrate that number. You can celebrate any number you want to. She said, so why don't you celebrate the number of your rebirth? And my rebirth was 25 years ago. So right now, y'all, I'm 25. So I just had my 25th birthday because I have been reborn for 25 years. And
Come on, somebody.
that rebirth sent me back to school. Got my master's degree at 60. It's 60.
Mm, mm, mm.
Then I got my first real job as a writer later. So 25 was the magic number for me. So let me show you something.
Y'all real conversations, okay?
I even did this little book. It says, I don't know if you can see that. 25 years of freedom. That's what I'm celebrating. And I am celebrating this whole year long. I started on my birthday in March, but the 25 years really began in November. That was 25 years that I broke free and started my life all over again from the bottom.
Come on, somebody.
From the bottom. With the help of my children, I got a home, my own home, which I love. It's my place of peace and refuge. It's the perfect place to write. I love being here. It's you see those flowers behind me?
Yes, ma'am. They're
All
beautiful
right, let me
too.
tell you how wonderful my children are, both of them. But my daughter called the other day. She said, Mom, are you home? And I said, yeah. And she said, I'm coming by. I got something for you. And she had a little note that said, this is just a love drive by. And she bought me those flowers that I got last week. So life as a 25-year-old is wonderful. And I get it from my children, I get it from my friends, I get it from my family. I'm just super blessed, super blessed.
Amen.
Some mornings I wake up and I'm pinching myself and I'm just thinking, oh, thank you, Jesus. Oh, I can't believe I'm here. I cannot believe not only am I here, but I'm here in my right mind, uh, and uh, and just in a total place of peace. And what you have done, Carl, I watch you run at 130 miles an hour every day, but you bring people into this circle to share parts of themselves that help them grow even more. And I really appreciate that. I do.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that we met.
Thank you. I'm glad that we met as well because you brought so much out of me.
I can't believe
Oh
that.
my God.
No, let me tell you, it was just sitting there, just saying, will you please get out of the way so this can come out?
Yeah. I appreciate the women that God has connected to me. And I feel like our stories are so important. I tell people this, I come from a family of storytellers. I sat at the feet of my grandmother while she sewed, and she shared stories into me. She gave me an excellent sense of myself. And, for years I was lost, and I had to refine who Carla was. Then I
Mm,
had to redefine who Carla was. So I'm
yes,
still in the process of redefining myself. I'm at the point now, I know my boundaries. I know how to set boundaries. My big thing is learning to love myself.
yes,
Teaching people and encouraging women, hey, you got to love yourself first.
right.
If you don't love yourself and take care of yourself first, you cannot help
That's
anyone else.
absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And we don't need permission from nobody to love us.
Nobody, no permission, none whatsoever.
That's
No
correct.
permission. And nobody validates us. And I
That's
tell people
correct.
only two opinions matter. Your opinion of God, God's opinion of you, and your opinion of yourself. That's it.
That's right. That
So
is absolutely right.
storytelling, that's my thing. I love telling stories. Um, I can, I hear people. You learn so much by being quiet and listening. You see so much. And I thank God for that discernment where you can discern who is who.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful to you, Miss Pauline Mansfield. You are really a ride and thrive. I call you and I tell you I need you to do so and so, or you say, okay. Thank you so much.
You
I
know,
send you my
this is my new circle. All these concentric circles. Oh my God, it's like a work of art. And so my kin and dignity circle of,
oh
oh
yeah.
Lord have mercy, I love these writing sisters. I do. I do, because we feel the same thing. We have a love for the same thing. We can appreciate each other's gifts without um, jealousy and without envy and without,
Right.
we just say, oh my God, look what she wrote. Jesus, that was good.
Right. And you do that. You set an example. You share. You send me a link, and I'm going and I'm like, Dad, this is really good. This is awesome. And then it's inspiring. It's encouraging. And then once I know I want to do better. Okay. But one of the things I understand that we all bring something different to the
Yes,
table. We are
exactly
not
true.
the same. We
Yeah,
are
we
so
don't have to
unique.
be copycats. That's exactly true. And when I read these things that people write, I'm thinking, where in the world did they dig to get that
Mhm.
from?
Right.
And it just really is, it's just like somebody holding out a little bit of bait in front of you to make you keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, to do better, get better, learn more. And I'm really enjoying that. I am.
And I thank you for that. And going back to our conversations and the group of women, I like the diversity. I love that it's different ages. I can hang with a 20-year-old. I can hang with 30-year-old. Because you
Yeah,
learn so much. You learn from the young and you learn from the old.
that's
And then
correct.
you share your wisdom as well. So definitely, I appreciate you for being the first speaker on our Girl Get Up, Let's Talk. It's time for us to talk so we can talk, we can learn things, we can encourage, we can push each other so everybody will know that, you don't have to be the same way every day. You can change, you can get better. Life gets better, life goes on. So I know I didn't want to overextend myself. I'm gonna do it probably once a month. And the next speaker that I have, I'm going young this time, y'all. And I still
If you're
believe
younger
that
than
hope.
25,
No, she getting old. She getting older. So she about 30. She's about 30. Oh no, she older than you, huh? She older than you, damn.
right, right.
I'm slow. I'm slow. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk. But I'm facilitating. We're gonna talk about being a doula, and it's so interesting that um, with your story when you talked about your trauma with the fetal demise.
Yes,
So many women can identify with that. So many women can identify even today with not being validated. They can talk about the bias in healthcare. So I remember as a nurse, I remember the first doula that I experienced. I'm like, okay, she coming up in here with all these candles, all kinds of, I thought that she was crazy, and that they were trying to take our jobs and all that kind of stuff. But I realized as a mother who became a labor and delivery nurse because of my experience, how important it is. And then when you do your reading and your research, you realize that giving birth is a family thing, is a community, really a community thing. It brings women together, and birth is really spiritual because it's between
yes.
life and death. So you
Well, I
have
can't
someone
wait
to
for
lead.
that. But let me tell you this, in connection with that, as I was telling my story, I was thinking about, interestingly enough, what a gift it would have been to me to have had a doula. That would
Yeah.
have created my community of sorts, even if it was a community of one or two. But there's a
Yeah.
movie coming out. I wish I remember the name of it. A young man lost his wife due
That's
to callousness. And if she had had a doula, that never would have happened. And the movie is to shine the light on how neglectful hospitals can be toward women of color who are just going in to have a baby. Just
And
going in to have a
actually,
baby.
it's providence that you said that because yesterday one of my board members had the board meeting yesterday, and she A1 was okay. Don't ask me for the acronyms right now. I'm tired, y'all. They're actually having they're gonna encourage you to watch the movie first, and they're
They're
gonna
doing
have
a
a
screening.
conversation. Yeah, they're gonna have a
Well,
conversation around the movie, why it's so important. And
yes,
she's
please
actually the
put the
person that's talking
information
about it.
on your webpage
I
because
will.
I
I
think it's
will.
important for all women, whether you're too old to have babies or not, because it's about how Black women are treated in this system like they're
Divine.
not human beings. I mean, it goes back to how I felt. But here, that was 50 years ago. Here we are now,
And it's
and
still
it's
the
still
same.
happening. That's
It's
almost
still the
that's
same.
criminal. It's
And that's
criminal.
a conversation by itself because
Yes,
it doesn't make a difference how rich you are. Because think about Serena Williams, she had her own
yes,
issue. How rich you are, how educated you are. If you have
correct.
insurance, if you have insurance or you don't have insurance, none of that matters. It's just the color, your skin, and the perception of the providers. So we
Yes,
have to be that change. When we talk about community, we have to be that change. And we have to, education is so critical and important because
right.
they took childbirth delivery away from the midwives, away from the women in the
Yes,
community, and they gave it to the OBGYNs, and that's a conversation for itself, and
yes,
put it in the hospital where babies were born at home.
yes.
So, and it's a way to generate income. So we're gonna leave that one. I'm gonna put it up on my okay. I'm gonna put it up on my website. You guys can follow me on Instagram at I am Carla Scipio. On Facebook, I am Carla Scipio. And we do a lot of things. We have the nonprofit, the Born Educators Academy, which focuses on women and children. We provide food supplies. We do personal development workshops. We provide personal hygiene. We provide clothing. We're here to help the women win. And definitely somebody put up self-advocacy. That's one of the
So,
things that
yeah,
we're going to be talking about too, is how to advocate for yourself.
yes.
So we're here to strengthen our community one individual at a time. So make sure that you
Amen.
guys tell and share about our conversations. My dream is that it will grow, it will become global, and people women all over the world will be coming together as a community to make a difference. Because sometimes maybe we need to run the world. We already
Yeah,
run it, but literally we need to be involved in politics, advocacy,
right.
um, protocols, our policies, all of that. So we have to be in the forefront.
Yes, yes.
So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, Miss Pauline.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for
you,
everyone
Carla.
that stayed on the live, that came back. I know some people jumped on and things weren't working. I'm gonna tell y'all, everything tried to prevent me from having this. The internet went down. We couldn't get Facebook to do like it usually did. I mean, my internet was working up until 11:30 this morning, and then it went out. And Comcast couldn't even tell me what the issue was. First, they would say we're gonna send a technician, then they said outage, and they said no outage. But look, it came up, it worked out, and we're here. We had a good time.
Yes.
We'll see you guys next time. Don't forget, I am Carla Scipio on Instagram. I am Carla M Scipio on Facebook, and you can also find me Carla Scipio. And
Thank
that's
you,
it. Thank you
Carla.
guys.
It's been wonderful, and I thank you for the therapy at no charge.
Yeah, we're gonna do brunch, y'all. We're gonna do brunch. And that's what we are. We're here to release, breathe again, and
Yeah.
move on. It's therapy for everyone. Appreciate y'all. Who laughing?
God
Appreciate y'all.
bless.
God bless everyone.
All right.